I don't know what I'm going to talk about in this video, but we'll just see what happens. I've got 2 done, so that means 11,998 to go. All right, so I think maybe I might as well just bite the bullet and talk about the whole, is this some kind of cult thing? Because, hey, that's a legitimate question, and I think when some people read some of my stuff and they don't really have the backstory, they don't really necessarily have a lot of context for it, they're kind of going, okay, is this girl getting kinky with Jesus or something? Like, this is not appropriate. Well, I just want to address that because it's a legitimate concern. And I don't really know how to defend it, except that I'm married. I've been married all along. I have a husband. Rob is my companion. He's my lover. He's my friend. But none of that touches me in the place that I really need to be touched. And I don't believe that a human being can meet those needs. I believe that only God can be my soulmate because he's the one who shaped my soul. And so I think my best defense is just to say, I've never experienced any sexual feelings in my relationship with the Lord whatsoever, because frankly, that wouldn't be nearly intimate enough for him. He's not interested in that. Those needs are met in my marriage. And what I'm talking about is a spiritual intimacy that can't be experienced in a human relationship. I'm convinced of that. If I'd married anyone else, it wouldn't be any different. God is my husband. In Isaiah 54, it talks about the Lord being your husband. The Lord is your husband, it says. And it speaks of him being provider. And, I was at church this Sunday, and the pastor was talking about that verse that says we have the ministry of reconciliation, that in Christ, God has reconciled us to himself, making peace between the two. See, I should have looked that verse up before I made this video. But trust me, it's there, and it talks about reconciliation, and it talks about making peace between the two. And peace in that verse is a very unique use of that word. It's the only time it's used in that exact way to infer that 2 halves of a whole are being brought together. And that is what the Lord does in our relationship with him, because he created Adam and Eve in the beginning, not for each other, but for himself. And so it's as if God took his own rib and shaped an eternal companion from it, breathed his own breath into them. And so anyway, but so are we good? Are we okay? I don't know. Maybe you're not, but that's all right. I've had years to process this and wrestle with these questions and experience the love of God in ways that just convinced me that God is my husband, that Jesus is the bridegroom, I am the bride, and everything we experience of intimacy here in our human relationships is simply a glimpse of the incredible, unbelievable intimacy that is available in our relationship with the God who shaped us for himself. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about what happened to me as I began to experience all of this. There was an explosion of creativity in my life, and all of the things that I'd always done suddenly made perfect sense. I wasn't really different. I just figured out who I really was. Kind of like Paul and Saul. Paul wasn't much different from Saul. The only thing that he figured out was that it was hard to kick against the goads. It was hard to resist what he was designed to do. So he was a terrorist before his encounter with Jesus, and he was an evangelist after, and there really wasn't a whole lot of difference between the two. So I became a love Nazi for Jesus, and there was this explosion of creativity in my life. I danced. I'd always loved to dance, but now I danced in worship like a freak. I'd always written love notes and And writing was one of my love languages. Man, I wrote like crazy, especially when I'd have experiences and encounters with the Lord. I always wrote about it. I began to organize worship retreats because keeping my passion secret was never an option for me. And it still wasn't an option for me. So I was like, let's get everybody together and love on Jesus like crazy for a weekend. And so that's what I did. I started to organize worship retreats. I think we had our first Love Fest retreat, I called it, at Entheos with some of the ladies from Grace Vineyard. And then I think every year after that, I had some kind of worship retreat, ladies retreat, Love Fest retreat. Most of them were out at Kingsfold Retreat Center. And next time I'll tell you more about Kingsfold. See how many emails I'm getting? People love me. And I'll tell you about Kingsfold and some of the amazing things that happened there. And that will probably be a bonus video because that's just basically for me. Okay, so I better answer that email.